Hello and welcome to another episode of Howl's Histories. And today's topic are the murders of Jack the Ripper. And so let's start with some background. It is 1888 and it's London. And we're looking at Whitechapel, one of the poorest areas of London. There are 30,000 people living in Whitechapel in just 4,000 houses. The overcrowding is dreadful. In this area there are 62 brothels and 1,200 people working as prostitutes. 1,000 people are homeless. There had been mass migration from Ireland and by Jewish people from Russia fleeing the pogroms in Russia. Anti-Semitism is rife in this area as Jewish migrants tended to find employment slightly quicker than other types of migrants. Also, many of them ran tailoring businesses that broke employment law, allowing them to undercut local businesses. They also worked on Sundays, which of course, their holy day being a Saturday isn't a problem for Jewish people. Now, the police are terrified, even before the murders, that there are going to be full-blown riots in this area. Now, this police force, there are two London police forces, the City of London Police and the Metropolitan Police Force, led by Sir Charles Warren. Now, Sir Charles Warren is an ex-army general, and he had used the army against protesters in Trafalgar Square in what was known as Bloody Sunday, one of many Bloody Sundays in history. Now, it made the working class resent the police. Also, the newly arrived immigrants often feared the British police force because of the pogroms in Russia. They had been attacked by the Russian police and they had no reason to trust, therefore, the British police. The two forces' bosses did not like each other and they don't work together well, which is not going to help when it comes to the investigation. Now let us think about the area. You've got what is known as pea super smogs. Because every household burns coal, there's an awful lot of pollution into the air. Sometimes when the mists come off the river and interact with the air pollution caused by burning coal, you get this horrible, thick, green smog. Sometimes you can't see your own hand in front of your face. This is going to make law and order a nightmare in this area. Put simply, you can put coppers onto the street patrolling, but how far can they see? How easy is it for someone to escape? Well, very easy. Now, there is a lot of violence in this area, although it must be said that in this area murder is uncommon. There is a pimp looking after the prostitutes, and I say looking after in the loosest possible of senses, but there is a pimp working in this area looking after the prostitutes, known as the Leather Apron. That's his nickname because he works in a suit, but to stop the blood getting onto his clothes, he wears a leather apron over his clothes. He's actually a Jewish man called John Pizzer, and a particularly unpleasant man. If the prostitutes didn't pay their protection money, then first of all he would take out an eyeball, because he says the clients don't look at the prostitutes' faces when they're doing whatever it is they do with them. And after that you would see the removal of the fingers and the ears. A really unpleasant man, but one that has been hard to bring to justice because there is no witness protection scheme at this time period, and so every time the police arrest John Pizzer and then decide to bring him to trial, then his cronies will go and kill all the witnesses, and so case after case collapses due to lack of evidence. And so we have an idea of the area and the times. Bleak times indeed. But now we get to the first murder. It's the 31st of August and it's 1:30 in the morning. Mary Ann Nichols, Polly to her mates, is thrown out of her bedsit as she's behind on the rent money. "Save me my bed, I'll soon get your money," she says. At 2:30 in the morning, Emily Holland, a friend, saw her outside the Frying Pan pub. She is very drunk and staggering. Now, she had earned the rent money 3 times over, but she's an alcoholic. She's drank that money every time, and she's looking for one more customer. At 4 o'clock, she's found murdered in Bucks Row. Her throat has been slashed with a long-bladed knife twice. Her stomach has been opened up with a deep, jagged wound. Now, this is not the first murder that year. I did say that murders were uncommon, but there had been a murder of another prostitute only weeks before. 2 soldiers had got drunk and killed a prostitute in a building site. The police initially think these killings are connected, although we now suspect strongly that they are not. Now, on the 8th of September, so just over a week later, at 5:30 in the morning, another prostitute, Annie Chapman, is there, and she's out working the streets. A friend, Elizabeth Long, sees her with a dark-haired man. Now, she's sure of the time because she can hear the chiming of the clock of the Black Eagle Brewery. The man has his back to the witness, but she does hear him ask, "Will you?" To which Annie says, "Yes." Moments later, a young carpenter, Albert Cordich, who was living in 27 Hanbury Street, went into his backyard to use the outhouse. A lot of houses, in fact most houses in this time period, in this location, they don't have toilets in their own houses. Instead, you've got little brick buildings in the back of the gardens, the outhouses and the toilets are there. And so Albert Cordich, he lives in an area where prostitution is rife. Tragically, prostitutes often use other people's gardens for their trade, what they called a tuppenny upright, for 2 pence a prostitute would go with you and lean against a wall, and they are often using other people's gardens or other people's walls. And Albert Cordich, therefore, he hears somebody in a neighbour's garden, not that keen though to see what's going on. He thinks he knows what's going on. As it happens, he doesn't know what's going on. But also, he's desperate to go to the toilet. And do you know what? When you gotta go, you gotta go. And so he rushes to the outhouse. Now, this is actually a really interesting area, Hanbury Street, to get into these back gardens. So it's one of those coach house designed houses. It's where you've got to go into a little courtyard underneath someone's house to get into these back gardens. And so for a killing to take place in this area is really unusual, because there's only one way to escape, and that's underneath someone else's house. You could be seen by anybody in these houses at Hanbury Street at any time. This tells us something about the killer. It tells us that he's supremely confident that he's going to get away with it, or possibly that he actually wants to get caught. A lot of serial killers, as strange as it sounds, do actually want to get caught because they're desperate for the attention and the fame and the infamy of being associated with their crimes. But Albert Cordich is going to his own back garden, and he can hear somebody in the next door garden. He hears voices and it's number 29. He hears a woman go, "No!" And then he hears something heavy fall against the fence. Now, at 6 o'clock, a man called John, who lives in number 29 with his family, comes into his back garden and finds a dead body in his backyard. And the police surgeon this time, unlike with the first murder, conducts a thorough post-mortem. For there have now been a spate of deaths. Now, there was a bruise on her lower jaw and the right-hand side of the face from a hand and thumb, and circular bruises on the left-hand side of the face, probably from fingers. The killer was left-handed, as the cuts were left to right and started deeper and then got more shallow. Now, her throat was severed with 2 cuts, the abdomen slashed entirely open. The uterus had been removed, as was 2/3 of the bladder and the top half of the vagina. The knife had been very, very sharp, a 6 to 8 inch blade, but definitely not a bayonet. The intestines had been taken out and draped over the shoulder. Now, the incisions were clearly cut and showed considerable surgical skill. The surgeon said it could not have been done in less than 15 minutes. And a surgeon doing this kind of work with care would have needed an hour. The killer had 30 minutes in that back garden. This starts to tell us a little bit more about our killer. He must have considerable surgical skill and anatomical knowledge to achieve this in those conditions.